The purpose of this algorithm is to learn everything there is to learn about you and me in order to know what content to deliver us to keep us on their platform for longer and back more frequently. Well, hey there, and welcome back to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hind, and I'm here to help you understand social media, but not in a way that just adds to your knowledge base. I want to help you implement strategies that work right here and right now to get actual, real results for you and your business. My passion is helping business owners connect with their ideal target customers to communicate their passion and a message and have an impact on the world. Today, that's you because you tuned into this podcast. So, welcome. I'm so glad that we get to spend this time together. Today, I want to talk about something that I talk about a lot, but I think I forget sometimes that not everyone's heard this message. And so I really want to dive on in and talk about the A word, the algorithm. Now, we're going to explain a little bit about what this is. But interestingly, this is actually the first ever episode I did on this podcast back, I'm going to say nearly 5 years ago now. I don't even know how long it's been. It's been a while. But the very first episode I ever did was why your social media content isn't working. And I got to talking about the algorithm. Now, I want to do a little update today because we all know that this thing changes rapidly and without warning. And absolutely, there have been some changes to this thing we call the algorithm in the last 6 months, 12 months, 3 months. It is constantly changing. And I'll explain a little bit about that in a moment. But what I want to talk about today is not just what's changed. I want to talk about what's actually working and what to avoid, because these are two very important things to remember when it comes to getting your content not just delivered to your ideal customer, but seen. So let's just start at the basics here for a little moment and explain what this thing is. So the algorithm is essentially a program that operates in the background of not just Facebook, not just Instagram, but really any social media platform and most websites that you use as well. In fact, there are algorithms behind computer games. There are algorithms behind many systems that we use now. The point of an algorithm, generally speaking, and certainly in the case of Facebook or Meta, as we call it, which oversees Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and many other platforms, the purpose of this algorithm is to learn everything there is to learn about you and me in order to know what content to deliver us to keep us on their platform for longer and back more frequently. The whole idea behind this is they want you on their platform. They don't want you going anywhere else. They want you coming back over and over and over again because, of course, the more time you spend on the platform, the more advertising dollars they can recruit and the more money they make. So this comes down to some really simple things. It's watching your behavior. It's watching the behavior of all of its members. Things like what websites you go to. It's looking at what sort of conversations you're having. What posts do you not just click on, but what do you hover on just a little longer than normal? What do you scroll past? What do you hover on? What do you interact with? What are your behaviors, not just on their platform, but they can also track various behaviors in different locations as well, depending on the permissions that you have given or the permissions you've removed. So not to go too depth into all of that side of it, what I want you to know is it is watching your behaviors and those patterns in order to work out what you're interested in. Now, this is so sophisticated, it can predict your future behaviors to the point where, and Greg explained this the other day actually during a training that we did, and it's so true. There are some behaviors that can predict that even we have no idea that we're going to do. There is some research that shows that some of these algorithms can predict behavior even as crazy as things like marriage breakups. It can predict certain behaviors like what sites you're going to go to, what you're going to look for based on your life situation and what you may be going through. It's really fascinating because I know a lot of people will say, oh my gosh, it can hear me. The argument here, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but the argument is it's not that it's listening to you, although I'm not convinced that's not the case yet either. the platforms will tell you they're not listening to you, but here's the thing, it's not, their argument is it's not about that they're listening to you, it's that they know you so well they can predict what you're going to do. Now, we'll leave that debate up in the air for now, but what I want you to glean from this is the platforms know you very well, therefore they know your audience very well, therefore they know what you want to see to keep you there. That's their primary aim. That's what they've done. And so this comes back to the content you create. Let's talk about that for a second, because this is very important to understand when it comes to creating posts that you want to help you grow your business. If you don't understand that the primary aim here is that the platform wants people to stay on the platform, then you miss the most important point, and that is that you need to be creating content that people actually want to consume. Now, when you do that, when you create posts that people want to look at, that they're interested in reading, the platform does a lot of the hard work for you because it's in its best interest to. So Facebook is really, really, really working hard at training people like you and me to do a good job of our content, because when we do, we help it. So there are a few things I want you to understand. We're going to talk about different types of content and its delivery in a moment. But I want you to understand that when you work with the algorithm works for you. It does the hard work, the hard and heavy lifting for you. It will deliver your content to more people. You'll be seen by more people. And suddenly it's a little bit like a snowball effect. It just compounds. You will notice if you change your content, it will take days, but you'll see patterns happen. And the reach of your content will dramatically increase or reduce based on what you're doing. Ever had a situation where you start to change your content up a little bit? I did this recently. I was running an event, a local event, because of course I don't have enough to do. So I ran a local event and I was doing a bit of promoting of that on my personal profile. Now my personal profile is in professional mode, it's set to public. And so I was popping a few posts about that event on there. But of course, because I was highly promotional for a period of time, my reach dropped from about 3,000 feeds per post to 150 in about 3 days. Now, it's very easy to change that and turn it around when you recognize these patterns and you're paying attention. But if you're not, this is where we can fall into a bit of a hole and start delivering content that's just not serving us because the algorithm is literally hiding it from people. So let's talk about the 3 modes of delivery now. And I've spoken about this on the podcast before, but in slightly different terminology because, of course, the platform has changed its terminology for us. So I want to talk to you about, we talked about it as connected and unconnected distribution. This has changed a little bit. It's now called connected content and recommended content. So back around 2 years ago, you saw content for one of several reasons. You either saw a post delivered to your feed because it was someone who you were friends with, or because it was a business page that you followed, or it was a group that you were a member of. The other way that you would see content was because you were being targeted by an advert. So they were the 2 ways you would receive content. Either you were connected, so business page, friend, group that you were involved with, or a targeted ad. So it was targeting you based on various different things. It could have been your behavior. It could have been something you clicked on or looked at, lots of different reasons. So 2 different reasons you saw content. About 2 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg said, I want to start rewarding people for creating great content. And so we're going to add in a third element, and that is what we call recommended content, or what we were calling unconnected distribution up until about 6 months ago. This meant that you were receiving content because the algorithm thought you would be interested in it, but you'd never seen, or maybe you'd seen very little content from this particular source before. And so this is why, and this content is now up to about 37% of all news feeds. So what this means is when you go to your Facebook feed and of course your Instagram feed, because it's the same thing across there, you'll notice that a good portion, over a quarter, probably close to a third of your content now is coming from people, pages, and groups that you have never followed, you don't know anything about, they're brand new people. And you might have been asking yourself, why am I seeing this content? Well, the reason is because the algorithm is now using an AI tool as well, which is helping it be even more sophisticated in this space to find content that's out there that it thinks will be relevant and interesting to you. Now, this is both a great thing and a negative thing from you, the business owner who's looking to promote yourself. There's a couple of things you need to keep in mind here. Thing number one is this means if you haven't figured out how to provide content that people want to see, you're going to be seen by even less people than ever before. But if you've nailed it, if you've worked out how to create great quality content, you've now got an opportunity without paying a cent for the platforms to show you to up to 37% of brand spanking new people that you've never connected with. So I want you to see the opportunity here for a little moment, because this is a great chance for us to grow our businesses without paying for adverts, something that we've never really had an opportunity to do before. If you wanted to reach new people previously, you had to get super clever about it, or you had to run an ad. Well, that's all shifting. So, how does it decide what content is popular and what's not? Well, it goes through a series of processes to do this. The first thing the platform looks at is what posts are available. So this should go without saying. This is why you need to be posting content. If you're not posting content, you're not even in the running, right? So first of all, it's looking at what content is available. The next thing it looks at is signals. So the signals are signals by the users, but also it's looking at patterns that have come from your previous content as well. So it's looking from two elements. It's looking at what are people interested in, what are the signals of those people, the behaviors, what are the predictions based on those users' past behavior, but also what are the signals from your previous content. So this is why sometimes when you change things around, it can take a little while to change your deliverability, because the algorithm doesn't just simply look at your new piece of content and go, oh, she's nailed it this time, we're going to show this to everyone. It goes, okay, based on your previous content, your interaction's been pretty low. So we need to take that into account when we then score that content. And that's the last part of this process. So it checks what's available, it looks for signals, it looks at behaviors, past and present, and then it scores that content. And based on that score, it then decides what the relevance of that piece of content is. So the algorithm will give it a relevance score. And of course, the higher that score, the higher that feed will be, that piece of content will be in the feed. The lower the relevance score, of course, the less it's going to show that piece of content. So I want to just quickly, I don't want to focus too much on the negatives, but I do want to talk to you about what sort of things will downgrade the relevance score of your content. So a few things to be aware of here. It doesn't mean avoid these all of the time, some of them definitely, but it means that when you do some of these things, you need to be aware that it could very well be maybe downgrading a piece of content that you could just tweak slightly and get a higher relevance score. So first thing is it's looking for content specifically that makes it harder for Facebook to maintain a safer community. So if you're putting content out there that is in any way, shape, or form a risk to the platform, you can consider that that piece of content is likely to get downgraded. And the filters that it has are pretty darn good at picking up on this stuff. These are things that you're very unlikely to be incorporating, but you need to be aware of them. So it could be anything that talks about anything in the space of self-harm, disorders, eating disorders, for example, that could be sexually explicit, or promoting regulated products as well. Now, this could be accidental. It's not, remember that these things are being filtered by a program, by a bot, the algorithm. So it's not a human sitting there going, oh, well, she doesn't mean XYZ. It's a computer program that is literally looking for specific words, phrases, or suggestions that could relate to these sorts of things. So it doesn't mean it gets it right every time. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg recently made a statement to say that they believe that over 60% of all of the posts that they remove from the platform because they've in breach of their community standards is actually incorrect assessments. So there's a few things in here that they're working pretty hard on at the moment. So just be mindful that sometimes walking the line can be too close. It can be over. It's better to come all the way back and just make sure, like if you're talking about something, for example, let's just say self-harm, but in a way where maybe you're bringing some awareness to it, or you're being supportive, or whatever it might be. You might even be talking about a personal story in that realm. those sorts of things still may very well hinder not just the post you created that one time, but everything surrounding it as well. So, definitely content that could create any kind of risk for the platform. Also, low quality content, and one that it particularly points out is this, and this is going to be a big deal for this industry, direct selling, is sensitive content around health or finance. Okay, so anything like exaggerated health claims, anything that suggests cures, miracle cures is the wording that it uses, but cures, health claims, cosmetic procedure, discussions or promotions, and business models that it might consider to be misleading or deceptive, and risk-free investment. So anything that could sort of fit around those parameters right there is possibly going to cause you problems. So just be aware of that. Also, it wants people to feel positive about the platform. So any content that users generally dislike. So things like clickbaiting is a big no-no. You want to avoid clickbaiting at all costs. And I'll talk about clickbaiting shortly. Overly promotional content, contests and giveaways that are highly promotional. So all of these things are considered content that is generally disliked by its users. And so therefore, it goes against what it's trying to do and it doesn't show it to as many people. It also states that any content that has is from sources that lack transparency. So this could be news style content that has not got clear authorship or publishing information. Again, this is straight from the platform. So you want to make sure that you're delivering content that is accurate, that is clear, that is transparent if you're going to go down that road. And then we've got false and misleading content, which is the last one here. And this kind of goes without saying. Any fake news, any claims that have been debunked or widely disproved health claims as well. Even, of course, I know it's a little down the track now, but things like talking about sensitive issues such as vaccinations, etc. Just avoid it because, it will downgrade not just that piece of content you're putting up now, but potentially the content, all of the content surrounding it. It could be weeks, months. I've seen people shadow banned. And by the way, if you've heard the platform say we don't shadow ban, they give it another name. It doesn't really matter. They do hide your content from people. So this could mean that you kind of end up a little bit flagged or blacklisted for a period of time if you're breaching these things repetitively, sometimes even just once. So just to be aware, I don't want to spend too much time on this negative side of things, but I just want you to be aware of some of the things that could hinder your progress. So let's have a look at a few tips and tricks that are going to help you here to improve your content and some of the things that it's looking for. Now, the very first thing I want to come back to is one of the first things I said earlier when it comes to what it's looking for and specifically how it's scoring your content. And the first thing it's looking for is what content's out there, which begs the question, are you posting enough? Because if you're not putting content out there, it can't possibly pull from your content in the first place. So you got to kind of be in it to win it, right? So the first thing is stick to a consistent posting schedule. Be regular with your content. You may not have it nailed yet. You may not be getting it all right, but you got to have something out there if you want to be in the running. You will also learn a lot more about what works when you're practicing your delivery. So get content out there. Look at what's working and pay attention and keep posting. It does not, by the way, need to be time consuming. I'm a really big believer in simpler is much, much better. Be present over perfect. People want to relate to real. You know how to do real. Perfect is the thing that takes us all the time, and it's the thing that doesn't get us to results anyway. So show up. That's really important. Second of all, very, very importantly, and this is straight from the platforms, they are pushing this hard. I want to remind you of this. It is called social media for a reason. It is two-way. It's not old school marketing and advertising like what we had back when I was a kid, where you put an advert out there and you just wait for people to come to you. That was one-way marketing. Social media is two-way, which means we need to be creating content that is inviting engagement. So create posts that people want to engage with. The algorithm will favor your content when you do this because it wants to see people interacting with one another. That's what the platforms are all about. It's what gets people coming back over and over and over again. So create content that people want to not just see, but interact with. And so treat it like a two-way conversation. When you put a post out there, treat it like you're actually talking to someone rather than broadcasting at them. So add in a little question at the end of your post. Ask for some interaction. Make it something that invites people to have their say or be a part of in some way, shape, or form. Now, the next one I want to talk about is kind of an obvious statement, which is share posts that work on Facebook. But I want to just unpack this for a little minute. This comes back to understanding the platform itself. Now, we've got lots of different platforms and they all have their own little idiosyncrasies, right? They all work a little differently. They have slightly different audiences. Some are dramatically different. They have different purposes. They operate different ways. Now, Instagram and Facebook are the two that probably get confused and compared to each other the most. They are owned by the same company, but that doesn't mean that they're the same. They have different users and they're used in different ways. So we want to create posts on the platform we're using that work for that platform. So let me give you an example here. We have been told, and the 2024 report from Meta reflected this yet again, that nearly 98% of all posts that were viewed by users on the Facebook platform in 2024 did not contain a link. Yet, I still see heaps of people posting links and wondering why their content is not being seen by people. It's because you're doing something that doesn't work on that platform. Now, let's just talk about links for a sec, because if you're in the direct selling industry, the likelihood is that links are favorable to share because you have an online store, you have YouTube videos you want to share, or you have various different links, etc., that you would be in your benefit to get people to click on. But the flip side to that is if you're sharing those directly in your posts, you're just not going to get seen by people. So first of all, why? Let's talk about why. It's really obvious when you think about it. Remember what I said at the very start, what the platform wants from you? It wants you to help it keep people on its platform for longer and more frequently. Now, when you put a link to YouTube or to your website, you're steering people away from its platform. So it goes without saying, that very post you created with your link is going against what the platform wants. So why on earth would it show your post to people? Now, there is a flip side to that. And that is, it's not just the platform. People also don't love their pattern necessarily to be interrupted. And so it also knows that users don't love that. So if people keep posting links all the time, it interrupts people's patterns. The users aren't looking at the content and it's not working in the favor of the platform. So a few years ago, it just said, we're just going to stop sharing links. So sometimes links work, very, very small portion of the time. In fact, 2% of the time, links work. But still, if those posts didn't contain a link, they'd probably go 100 times better. So regardless, it's not a great strategy to be incorporating. Now, you might be listening to this or watching this podcast episode going, oh, but hang on a second, I need to be able to share links. There is a part of my business where that is very important. Well, there are strategies you can use to share links, and that's a conversation for a whole nother day. But just really quickly, put it in the comments, okay? You're still going to downgrade the content, but not as much as you would if you'd put it in the main caption. But my favorite way of doing this, get the interest, intrigue, curiosity, conversation going on the post, and then reach out to people privately when they've given you permission to do it. So if people want more information, get them to reach out to you. So a brilliant post popped up today from a leader that I know in the direct selling industry. They've had a new product come out that has got a whole bunch of recipes surrounding the product. She shared a little video of her creating this beautiful looking recipe. Didn't show off the product at all. You saw her put it in, but you didn't know what it was unless you already knew what it was. And then she simply said, just comment the word Dubai if you want my recipe. And so I've commented Dubai, and of course she sends me a private message with that recipe and asks if I would like to purchase that ingredient. So it's an easy way of sharing the link without getting yourself in hot water and still getting the reach that you want and of course deserve. So that's another thing to keep in mind here. All right, next tip for really Maximizing the algorithm, getting your content pushed out to more people is embrace video content, guys. Video content is favored by the platform because it's favored by the users. And the best type of video content to do at the moment, because it's trending, is short form video. So the recommendation at the moment is 90 seconds or less. People have got short attention spans in 2025. So 90-second videos or less. Now, let me be clear, a video doesn't have to be highly edited or perfect. I have recorded videos of me literally just talking to the camera, sharing a super quick tip, no editing, like in the moment, not even wearing makeup, popping it out there, and those posts go crazy because they're real, they're relatable, they're not perfected, which means people can connect with them genuinely. Now, that doesn't mean you don't edit and play with your videos and do a really amazing job of them if you've got the know-how and the time. But I'm going to hazard a guess that if you're a little like me, you don't have oodles of time to spend on creating these perfect videos. And I find it really frustrating. It's just going to come out here right now. This is Sam Live. I find it really frustrating when I see trainers teaching these methods of creating reels and videos that are highly time consuming. Because while they might work for some people, vast majority of people, especially people like me and probably you, are sitting there looking at that going, that is never a strategy that's going to be sustainable for me. So if I have to do that to grow my business, I might as well quit now. Well, I'm here to give you some really great news. While that strategy is one strategy amongst many that works well, you actually don't have to create highly edited, perfect videos in order to get great reach. Just remember, regularly creating content, play with it. You will find some ways of creating video that works for you if you practice. You know, the first time anyone did a Facebook Live, it wasn't perfect. You know, the first time I did a podcast like this, you know what? It wasn't perfect. It took a while to find my groove, to find my place. And you will too. But like a kid learning to walk, the first few times you do it, probably the first 100 times you do it, you're going to feel pretty wonky and uncomfortable. But eventually it becomes easier and easier to do. And so will creating video. So play around. There's lots of different ways you can do it. You can incorporate literally still photographs to turn them into clever reels by just dragging and dropping into templates. If you're wondering more about that, we've got an amazing, amazing course we can provide to you where we teach you all of this stuff step by step. And I'd love to share a little bit about that in the show notes. If you want to check that out, we'll put the link in there. But just remember, video doesn't have to be hard. It can be super simple, but it's very, very powerful. Okay, next one. Another one I mention a lot, but this is so important. The platform, all of the platforms actually, but specifically Facebook and Instagram keep drilling this in. They want user-generated content. We call it UGC just to make it sound cooler, but really it's just content created by you. It is not photos and videos that you share. It's content you create. Why? Because number one, it's unique. There's only one of that piece of content out there when you created it. Number two, it's real and it's relatable. And people are asking the question right now with the rise of AI, what's actually real? It's predicted that over 40% of the content that's out there on Facebook and Instagram right now is AI created. So this does beg the question, what can people trust? And when you create a genuine piece of content that's from you, a photo you took and a caption you wrote, it has people connecting with something that's real. And that's what they want. That's what I want. And I reckon it's probably what you want too. Okay, couple of other quick tips for you just as we wrap up. Next one is publish posts that create meaningful conversations. Now, I've already talked about this. You want to engage, but you also want to think about what's the conversation I'm sparking here. So be very mindful. You may not actually talk about something that's controversial, but you could very easily spark conversation around something that's controversial. And even if you weren't the person that gave that opinion, people will remember not what you said, but how you made them feel. And if it originated from you and it leaves a bad taste in people's mouth, it's going to have an impact on you and your business and potentially your content moving forward. I know a few people that are very good at sparking what I would call unhealthy debate. not healthy debate, unhealthy debate on social media. And these people, you can see their content is being seen by less and less and less people. And that is two things playing out there. That's people going, I don't want to see any more of your stuff. And the algorithm saying, we're not going to show any more of their stuff because people don't want to see it. So just ask yourself, am I going to spark some great, meaningful conversation here? And there are some masters of doing this. A really clever thing to do is ask ChatGPT every now and again for some help. What are some great posts I could put out there that would spark meaningful conversation that would be of interest to my target audience? Hopefully, if you've done our courses, you've done the exercise on ChatGPT to identify who your dream customer is. So you shouldn't have any questions in your mind about who that is right now. We'll use it to help you come up with some ideas here in this space. Now, I mentioned before clickbait, so I want to just speak into that for a moment because clickbait is something people do a lot without even realizing that they're doing it. Clickbaiting is any content that is borderline spam, really, but it's where you're asking people to specifically interact in a particular way or that doesn't deliver on what it looks like it's talking about. So, for example, we see a lot of this with like news headlines. One that I saw today was, the fruit that you need to stay young. And it was like the one fruit you need to eat every day to stay young. And of course, when I got to click on it and read the story, it was total clickbait. It wasn't really what the post was about at all. It was a full-on sales post about something almost completely unrelated. So this is an obvious tactic to get people to click on the post. And it works, but only for a period of time until you get picked up. And it's going to impact all of your content in a negative way. The other way that people clickbait is where they ask people to comment in a particular way. So when people say things like this if you agree, or comment with, and they tell you exactly what to comment with. So use this emoji or comment with XYZ word. This takes away what the platform considers to be freedom of speech, and it's considered clickbait. The other type of clickbait it doesn't like is when it's getting you to tag other people that didn't volunteer to be a part of that post. So again, this is where getting people to tag and share to win a competition becomes completely breaches the community standards. So you want to be a little bit aware of those sorts of things as well. The last thing that I want to encourage you to do to tap into what's trending right now in 2025 and really, really utilize the tools that are getting the results right now is to prioritize community. Community is absolutely key right now. Using groups, using events, really utilizing that community element. If there were one thing that I wish I had done more of in the early stages, it would be build more communities or really work hard on my communities because we saw some interesting things happen about a year ago. And I made a prediction with you guys on the podcast when we talked about this. We saw a bunch of features being removed out of groups. So third party apps, etc., lost their ability to tap directly into Facebook groups. And we saw a few other things happen as well. And a bunch of people were out there going, oh my gosh, Facebook groups are going down the toilet. They're not going to work anymore. It's not a thing anymore. Well, I predicted at that time that we were going to see Facebook groups taking on a whole new lease of life. I didn't see it as a backward step. I saw it as a forwards one because I could see they were cleaning things up. And that's exactly what's happened. So, hate to say it, but I told you so. No, I don't hate to say it. I love being right. Let's face it. Facebook groups have absolutely become one of the key areas for businesses to grow. The content is being prioritized when done well. So really work hard on building those communities up because at the end of the day, people buy from those they like, know, and trust, and a community is a brilliant way for you to build trust. Now, how to build those communities? That's a conversation for a whole different day, and we'll definitely get there. But for right now, I want to really encourage you, think about what are you doing right now amongst all of the information I gave you today, and I gave you a fair bit there. What are some of the things that we're doing that maybe are not serving us? And what's one or two things that I could do just to tweak things and change them up a little bit? Maybe just adding in a little bit more of that conversational text into your posts to really invite that engagement and make your conversations rather than broadcasting at people. So have some fun with this. Remember, like anything that I do, whether you're inside of our memberships and you're doing learning with us, whether you're listening to the podcast each week, whatever it is for you, take one thing away from this training and implement it immediately. It's not the knowledge we gain, but it's the action we take that gets us the growth and the traction. And if you've ever heard me talk about this one before, you totally get where I'm going. 2 mm shift is all you need. If you regularly move by 2 mm, you can move mountains. So have some fun with this. Now, if you do want to know a little bit more about how you can keep learning with us, if you've loved this episode and maybe you've listened to a couple of our episodes now and you're thinking, do you know what? I really would love to get some support and some strategies that work. And I want to go through a process to grow myself on social media, to learn what's working, to implement things that will get me results. Then we would absolutely love to give you an opportunity to come and join us inside of our memberships, our incredible Auxano Family community. We've got 3 different ways that you can join us. We'll put the link so you can have a little bit of a look at that in the chat down here. But I also want to encourage you, we'll give you an email down there as well. If you're not sure and you're like, hey, I want some more information, what's the right fit for me? Reach out to us. Our incredible, incredible team are here to serve you and support you. And we would love to chat with you about how we can do that. What are some of the various different ways that we can support you right now? So that's it from me today. I hope that you've found this super, super helpful. And of course, don't forget to share it with a friend if there's someone that you think could benefit from this information. And click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes. That's it from me today. Thanks again for joining us on the podcast. And we'll see you again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.